My name is THERESA Schubert and I come from Germany, from Berlin, and the work I'm presenting here in the exhibition is called Chromaphy. The title is a compound of two words. One is chromatophores and the other one comes from Physarum polycephalum, and they're both two biological terms. The first describes a type of skin cell that's responsible for making color in animals such as chameleon or zebrafish, for example, that can actively change the color of their appearance. And the other one, Physarum polycephalum, is a type of slime mold, a single-cell organism that naturally grows in the forest. And the idea of my artwork is started as a speculative design piece that combines these two organisms to become a living variable for humans, to enhance our own senses with senses of these organisms. And the idea is that you have this living organism that's a modified version of this single cell Physarum polycephalum, and you can interface it with your skin, and when there is some changes in the environment, it will react with color or the physical appearance, so you know what to do under certain conditions. So one of the starting points was also to imagine that maybe sometime in the future, for example, we would live in outer space or something, so we would not have a connection anymore to the environment as it is on the world here, and maybe not have the day and night change as we are used to have it right now, for example. And the Chromaphy variable would, for example, help us with still knowing circadian rhythm, and so we would be able to have a natural sleeping pattern and not get disturbance, for example, by not being able to differentiate day or night time, or also as a way to find out about radiation in the environment, for example, because the organism Physarum polycephalum is something like a natural light sensor, so it reacts in a negative way to UV radiation, and in this sense it is kind of very useful because also our human skin is very sensitive to UV radiation, and the organism then basically would tell us if there is too much radiation, and then we could take steps to protect our skin, basically. And the third speculation that is taken in the project is that the organism would actually also be able to read our body information. So there's already some scientific research undergoing that looks into wearable tattoos, for example, or things like that, that can read our body temperature or our heartbeat, or as a kind of medical tool, basically, to survey our body. And in this sense, basically, the Chromaphy variable would also be able to read like our body temperature, so to say, and react to our heartbeat and the vibration. And in that sense, it would make an interpretation of, for example, our stress level. So if we're like stressed, the heart starts to beat faster, or we start to sweat or something like that. And then it would also react with a color change to this, to our feelings, basically. And the assumption that's being made in this case is also that, in a way, it displays very private information, so to say, publicly, and then it would maybe also make an influence on how we would communicate with other people, or maybe we would stop to communicate with other people because we already see an interpretation maybe of how the other person feels or is like kind of stressed or negative about us, or at least that's how the organism maybe interprets it. And so it also plays a little bit with the way of private information becoming public through a biological sensor, basically, which is kind of the next step when we start from things like digital media and social media platforms like Facebook, for example. But then when we have something like this biosensor, we kind of hand over this information to a living organisms and are not even able anymore to control it, because it will become its own independent kind of organism making these interpretations for us. And there is maybe also a little bit of a risk if the information then is actually true or not, because we have no way of controlling it, or not as well as with digital media. And in the exhibition that I show here, this idea is basically visualized through a video. There is a video on a screen that shows kind of these futuristic situations, and it looks a little bit like a retro futuristic living room that's enhanced with some lab equipment. So the idea is also that maybe in the future we just have our own little biolab in our living room, and we can just make our own organisms or synthetic biology, whatever we want. And then there's these kind of 3 situations exemplified where the variable could be useful or react in some sense. And then on the other 2 walls there is some photographs and some real materials from the experiments that I have been doing as a kind of proof of concept to realize the first step that would need to be taken to realize such a thing. So there's mainly experiments with the slime mold Physarum polycephalum in the sense of material research, but also trying to make color changes in a DIY analog way. And then there's also another side that takes measurements of the membrane and the electric potential of the organism and translates that into sound, and you can hear the kind of noise pattern on the headphones. And yeah, that's it, I would say.